Hello from the Berlin Bar in downtown Las Vegas, Arts District, another fine establishment here in downtown Las Vegas. I got a draft beer, went with the Hefeweizen, and when they asked me if I want a 16 or 32 ounce, I went for the 32 ounce, but it's been a while since I've ordered a 32 ounce beer, and I sort of underestimated exactly how big a 32 ounce beer is. But we have a lot to cheers to, so that's fine. And first things first, Happy New Year, Happy 2022, everybody. Cheers. I have some poker hands for you guys. I know you guys enjoy the poker hands. I do too occasionally, and let's take a look at some, because I, your host on this channel, played a session of Pot Limit Omaha. Now I know not everyone's into the PLO, but maybe you'll find something interesting here. Even if you're not, maybe you'll learn a thing or two, maybe you won't, who knows, but there is a little bit of action, so here we go. Let's get into it. 5-5 with a mandatory $10 straddle, as is the norm here at the Aria, and aces in the first hand. There's an early position raised to 35. The button calls, and we can 3-bet or fold here. We don't have to auto 3-bet all of our aces hands in PLO, and we want to pick ones that will play better across various boards and runouts to 3-bet with. This one is close because we do have one suit and some mild connectivity with the side cards being able to make straights. But being out of position versus one of the better players and 200 big blinds effective, I think a flat call is probably fine in this spot. 4 ways to King 6-3 Rainbow. We check to the initial raiser, who c-bets 55. The button folds, and we make the standard flat call. The turn is another king, which isn't good for us, but the action checks through this time. River's a queen, and we can bet small for value and as a blocker bet, or we can check and decide. That's what I do, and my opponent bets 80. Pretty small bet, and while it's tough to find bluffs here, I'm feeling like I under-repped my hand a bit and toss in the call. He has the goods and shows us trip kings. It's also a pretty enough hand that he has. No matter how aggressively we played earlier streets, he was never going to fold it, so there's some decent chance, I guess, that we lost the minimum here, unless we're supposed to make a tight fold on the river, which is a possibility. In this hand, we look down at a pretty ace-king jack-10, so 4 Broadway cards, a lot of paint going on here, but no suits, unfortunately, so that takes away some value of the hand, but definitely worth an open at $40. Player on my immediate left, 3-bets right away to 140. The rock in this hand is in front of the player on my direct right, and he makes the cold call. We're not going to fold this hand. I call as well. King 9-3 flop with 2 hearts, top pair, top kicker, plus a gutter ball. We'll be continuing versus a c-bet, but there isn't one. Action checks through here on the flop. Offsuit 3 on the turn. Again, going to be calling versus a delayed c-bet, but no such thing. Action checks through on the turn. Offsuit 8 on the river, and kind of a similar spot. Once the player on my right checks, once again, could put out a small blocker bet / value bet, or we could just check it with a plan to call, and I decide to take that route, that plan of action. I check it. Guy on my left does put out a bet on the river here, representing aces, or maybe a hand like mine, ace-king. He bets $160. Player on my right folds. We have a pretty standard call here on the river. I toss it in, and he says, "You're good." 2 of the most fun words that you can hear at the poker table. He says, "You're good," and we are dragging it in. All right, this one's definitely a little bit more interesting, a little bit more betting, courtesy of me. So in this hand, the rock is in the hijack, and we are first to act here in the cutoff. King, queen, queen, deuce. Reasonable queens here. I'm going to raise it up and make it 40 to go in the cutoff. Big blind calls, and everyone else folds. Heads up to jack 10-8 with 2 clubs. So pretty interesting flop here because we have pocket queens, which means we double block queen 9. This is going to be a chance for us to use those blockers and represent the straight. So when he checks to me, let's start doing that. I bet $50 and my opponent calls. Offsuit 5 on the turn, nothing has changed, so definitely going to still represent the straight using these blockers. He checks it to me, and this time I bet $180. Once again, he thinks for not all that long and makes the call again. If nothing changes on the river, we're going to stick to the plan here, and that is what happens. Offsuit 4, so no reason to abandon ship here. If the board had paired or if a club came in, we would definitely change course, but neither of those has happened. So time to bet the maximum, apply the maximum pressure. Would do the same thing if I did have the nut straight here, going for maximum value. So the pot size wager is $555 according to the dealer. That's the wager. My opponent kind of shrugs, isn't quite sure what to do, what to make of it, but eventually decides on a call. We roll it over so we can see what we got called by, and it turns out we get called by the Jack 10-7-7, which is kind of an interesting choice. He does have top 2 pair, and he does block 9-7, the lower end of the straight, and he doesn't have clubs, so he unblocks us from having a missed club draw. But he doesn't have any blockers to the queen nine, which is kind of the more important hand here, especially when I go with the full pot sizing on the river. So I don't know, kind of a little bit iffy. I think the call on his end on the river probably maybe lean towards fold, but I guess we'll take the action, and we'll take the shrug call, because we're definitely gonna have the nuts here a reasonable portion of the time. So we lose this one, and maybe there's some external factors going on here. This player seemed, for some reason, a little bit tilted. I mean, probably because he was losing. But when I was playing at the table, and I was talking to a buddy of mine who had stopped by to say hello, for some reason he wasn't having that. He wasn't having me talking to somebody on the rail for as long as we were, which was approximately 5 to 7 minutes, I would guess, which isn't really that surprising a lot of the time in Vegas poker games when it's a local reg who's just kind of crotchety and angry. And on my camera there is exposure. There's an exposure dial, so I will be slowly dialing that up as the sun slowly goes down. I mean, it's already down, but you know. All right, so in this hand, the rock is on the button, and the big blind makes it $35 to go. Low jack calls. I have king, queen, 10, 5 with a suit to the queen in the cutoff. I'm gonna make the call here, and the button makes the call. Now, my hand probably a little bit potentially too much on the speculative side here. The 5 does nothing in this hand. It's just a pure dangler. We do have a suit, but it's only to the queen, so again, not that great. There's reasonably good connectivity with the king, queen, 10, so that's fine, but maybe a little bit too speculative on my part. In these live PLO games, I think I can get away with a little bit of lagginess, but you're definitely going to be bleeding some chips a reasonable amount of the time. But I do feel like I can capitalize on other people's mistakes when I do connect well with these types of hands. I say that just as an excuse to play more hands because I get bored sometimes. The flop is a favorable one. So we flop the nuts here. Action checks over to me, as we might expect with the queen high flush here. I bet $70. The button thinks for a bit and calls, and the initial raiser calls as well. So 3 ways to a turn card, which is a brick. Initial raiser checks once again, and time to ramp it up a little bit here. Again, if we just have the naked queen of diamonds here without the flush, we would be going to maximum pressure town. It's also good that we don't block the highest card on the board, because that unblocks pocket aces, and we also have the 10 of diamonds, which is better than having the jack of diamonds, which unblocks the next best flush. So I bet $350 here, and what happens next is a little bit unexpected. The player on the button raises. Never expect to see that when you're holding the nuts, but that is what happens here. And it's an additional $900 from the button here, all in. So the player who had initially raised pre-flop thinks for a little while, eventually lets it go, probably folding pocket aces there. Back over to us, obvious call. So off to the river card, going to do it one time, and it does not change the nature of the board or the nuts. So we're scooping this one in. My opponent does show down his hand, which ends up being an 8 high flush. Can speculate a little bit here. Maybe he thought he wouldn't be able to get away from it on a non-dynamic river card, and he wanted to charge the maximum, charge pocket aces or ace king the maximum. But in a multi-way pot, that's just an overplay, unfortunately for him. And I'm not like trying to poke fun at the guy or his play. He actually admitted out loud that he's a beginner in the game, which, hey, fair play to him. A lot of people are in these, not only in these PLO games, but in poker in general. I'm just sharing all this info and these thoughts after the hand, just to kind of note that there is often a bit of you might say, an asymmetry of information amongst the players in the PLO games these days. Hands such as this one, they definitely keep me coming back to the PLO games. All right, so this ends up being a good session in the PLO streets. They haven't all been good ones, but this one is. Getting into this game for $2,000. Cash out of this game for $4,542. Profit of $2,542, which provides us our second opportunity to cheers, fam. A good session in PLO land. Good session in the cheers. It's been a little bit swingy. For me personally, I think the toughest opponent in the stakes that I'm playing of Pot Limit Omaha, the toughest opponent that I face is myself. I definitely struggle sometimes with patience. And the variance definitely requires additional patience. When you have more opportunities to make various fun hands. You can make straights and flushes and full houses a lot easier in this game, but you got to make good ones. Also, there's going to be variance where even when you do make good ones, you still lose. So gotta try and not fly off the handle. So I definitely still battle some of those demons with myself and end up costing me some money sometimes. So lots of action in the PLO streets. I'll be in there. I'll be in the No Limit streets, as you've seen in the past couple of videos. Fun to be able to switch back and forth, keep things a little bit more fresh for myself, which is often important. Now, speaking of keeping things fresh, heading into 2022, kicking things off here in the new year, I would really like to find an editor for these videos. An editor is probably the simplest of job descriptions for the type of person that I'm looking for. I would actually like to find a co-creator, and what that means in my mind is somebody who can actually do some filming of their own. It's tough to push those boundaries when you're also trying to play good poker. You're doing all the editing yourself, you're filming it all yourself, you are publishing and promoting and coming up with scripts and also try to do live streams and do some travel and all those things. So it's a lot to do. Definitely not complaining, because as far as we've come on this channel from vlog number 1 back in 2016, pretty much nothing but awesomeness has come from all of this. That's not to say it's not without stresses though. So if there's somebody out there, ideally in one of these 3 markets, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, or Texas, preferably Austin, but maybe not necessarily Austin. If there's somebody in one of those 3 markets who is looking for some editing work, somebody who's got like the creative juices, the creative flair in them a little bit, I don't think I necessarily want somebody to just crank out the edits on poker hands. Although, if it ends up being that, that's fine. But I would like to try a couple other ideas, put them into work. Now, I would really like to find somebody in one of those 3 markets who has an interest in video creation, cinematography, creativity, and is looking for maybe a little bit of a kickstart or a little bit extra work or a lot of extra work for their content creation and editing career. I would love to be able to offer this platform to them so that they can put this on their resume or use this as the next stepping stone into whatever they're looking to do. So why those 3 markets? I'm going to be spending most of my time in 2022 amongst those 3 markets. Las Vegas is an obvious one. Los Angeles, we're still gonna be going to the Hustler Casino every other month to do a meetup game there, and I would also like to spend more time there. Texas, also going to be spending a lot of time in Texas, especially in Austin. Let's talk about that right after we cheers to ideally finding somebody for me to work with. If that person is you, if you think that person is you, if you would like to chat about it more, send an email to this email address. Send an email to that email address with the following info. 1, your editing experience and links to previous work that you've done. 2, who your favorite content creator is, and it does not have to be me, so don't try and just kiss a bunch of ass and say it's me. 3, where you live. Yeah, just tell me a little bit about yourself and those little bits of information. Just kind of stack them bullet point style, that's fine. All right, it's getting darker. I knew there would be a lot of babbling here going on in this video. Last thing though is probably certainly the most important aspect of all this. So far everything that I've done on the channel in terms of promotion has been for other businesses that I don't have an ownership stake in. Those other businesses can include ones like this one, the Berlin Bar. This is not even a sponsored post or anything like that. Often I just go to places that I enjoy that are nearby where I live and point the camera at them and try to highlight them. Other times there's more of a partnership going on, like when we do a meetup game, that's more of a partnership often, and this is going to be taking everything to a new level. The big announcement is that I'm going to be joining forces with a group of investors to buy a piece of the Lodge card room in Austin, Texas. So this will be the first time I have made a significant investment in another business that is not Favorable Apparel or the bigger business that I run with my wife. And it's definitely a significant one. It's so significant that it requires a group of investors alongside myself to come on board for a majority share of the business. So who are the other investors? One, you can probably guess, Brad Owen, my Meetup Game co-host. It doesn't stop there though, because the two of us are partnering up with Doug Polk and his crew that has powered Upswing Poker to become such an awesome business and the top of the poker training site world that it is. So the three of us and Doug's team are partnering up with the guys over at the Lodge who have done such an awesome job in making that room the biggest room in Austin and the biggest room in Texas. And pretty much anyone that you talk to, they rarely, if ever, have anything negative to say about this room. So they've done such a good job of starting this card room, building it from the ground up, and making it a place where people love to go play. And I am excited to not only get there, capture all the poker that there is to capture over there, but also to contribute to it and try and grow this business. They get a lot of games there regularly, but I think we can bring even more once we all partner up and are generating content from that room, and we can do whatever we want essentially. This is an independent card room in a pretty wide open setting to where we can run any game we want. We can of course use cameras whenever we want, especially from an ownership perspective. And I'm pretty excited for what this will be able to unlock in terms of doing the thing that we want to do here on this channel. Combining forces with these guys and building out this sort of dream team of operators, I think is going to bode very well for the future of that business and for the future of poker content creation. The partnership starts immediately, but there's a big launch event planned, big launch week event planned. We're calling it the Monster Meetup Week at the Lodge. Monster because the sort of crown jewel of this event is a monthly tournament with a $600 buy-in and a $500,000 guarantee. It's the biggest monthly tournament ever. It's going every month, but we're building out a pretty fun week of events around this tournament. There's going to be the biggest meetup game we've ever had in Texas on that Tuesday. We're going to play 510 on stream, the three of us. The day before that, we're going to play on stream later that week. We're going to have a bunch of different games going throughout that entire week, and there's a bunch of flights that you can partake in to get involved in that tournament and try and take it down. Would love for you guys to be there, whether you are a poker fan, poker player, a content creator of any type. We would love any support that you guys are willing to show us, and come join us at the Lodge for the big launch week, the Monster Meetup Week at the Lodge. Just gives us a really good chance here to sort of reflect once again on how far this thing has come from sitting on, the little balcony there in downtown Las Vegas with that awkwardness, that awkward intro. Definitely did not see an ownership piece of a card room in Austin, Texas, some 5 years later with an essentially dream team of fellow operators alongside me. Just kind of amazing to, take time to think about how far we've come through the poker content creation streets from vlog number 1 to, 232. By the way, did you guys see the last 2 videos on this channel? Those 2 videos, maybe even top 5 favorite. And it's funny because for very different reasons. Anyway, guys, cheers. So much fun to have here in 2022. Major things, major announcements here in vlog number 1 from 2022. So much more to come. And if I can find an editor / co-creator, we can kick out a lot more of these videos and capture it all and share it all with you guys. So hit me up. If you're out there, if you want to work together, hit me up. If you want to come play at the Lodge with me, hit me up. And Happy New Year to all of you guys. I hope you're staying well and looking forward to seeing you, whether it's at the Lodge, whether it's here in Las Vegas, somewhere out there on the poker streets, or just here on the YouTube streets. Cheers, guys. Happy New Year.